teach the art.
You still they never had this.
Number one, never wanna run about the gun. I wasn't licensed to have one. The minute they see me, fear me. I'm the epitome of public enemy. Use, abuse without clues. I refuse to blow fuse. They even had it on the news.
Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype.
Back when I wrote y'all, yes.
Let me welcome one of the hitmen himself. He has been doing this work for the better part of a couple of decades, uncovering voter suppression all over the country. Is it the worst it's ever been? Let me welcome Mr. Greg Palast. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. Hi.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so glad to be back with you in one way. Another way, I'm sorry to be back with you because we're still, from years ago, we're still talking about vote suppression, which is a fancy word for shafting Black people out of their vote. Why are we still doing this now? And it's worse than ever. It's the worst since the Jim Crow era, since 1946. It's the worst I've ever seen. And that's why I made this film, Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen. And by the way, I want to say thanks to the DiCaprio family and Jamie Foxx and their wonderful support. They're making it available free streaming at saveyourvote.org. That's saveyourvote.org. So if you want to save your vote, go to saveyourvote.org, get the information, check your registration, find out what you can do to protect your vote, and watch the film.
Yeah.
I think it's entertaining.
I love this. I mean, I don't love this. I love that this is your thing. You know, I say everybody's got to find their thing. This has been your thing, and you do it better than anyone. We just had a couple of callers from Texas, one talking about this very thing. The most horrific thing in the world probably is to show up to vote, and you've been voting in the same place, you've been voting your whole entire life, and to be told on this day, this important day, that you are not on the rolls. And to get a provisional ballot feels almost like a slap in the face to an American.
You know what I call
provisional
ballots? Placebo ballots. You think you voted, but you haven't. Did you know that? And this is not from Greg Palast. This is from the United States Federal Elections Assistance Commission. This is the official word. In the last election, 2.7 million provisional ballots were disqualified, thrown in the garbage. And by the way, whose votes are those? If you're Black, the chance that your vote, your provisional ballot will be rejected is 700% higher than if you're white. 2.7 million ballots. And so be careful. That's why we wanted you to watch this film as a warning. It's also entertaining. Actually, Leonardo DiCaprio just saw it yesterday again. He just said, wow. And he's putting out to his Instagram following a new public service announcement, which is, by the way, voiced by the wonderful Yvette Nicole Brown of Community. And
you know her?
Oh, yeah.
She's a friend. Yeah, she's a friend of the show.
She's wonderful. And of course, the wonderful Rosario Dawson is narrating. The producer is my favorite president, Martin Sheen, President Bartlett, and
yes.
George DiCaprio, and just a wonderful cast. But what you heard, you're absolutely right, Karen. There's nothing worse than showing up and saying, you can't vote here. And what you heard in that little trailer, you heard a woman, an African-American woman in tears, saying, it's just horrible. It's horrible. And she was crying on camera. I was there at the Atlanta polling station when her grandmother, who'd been voting at the same polling station for 50 years, she's 92 years old. She shows up in her walker and they say, scram, get out of here. And by the way, it was storming outside. They threw her out. They said, you're not on the voter rolls. And because they said that she didn't live in Georgia anymore. So I went to her home down the street from the polling station where they said she didn't live. And there on the wall was a picture of her and her cousin having dinner at her house, Martin Luther King. This is Martin Luther King's cousin. They, after 50 years, they told Martin Luther King's cousin, you can't vote here anymore. And that's what we are trying to prevent. And then you heard at the beginning of the film, first of all, in the middle of the film, you heard this woman screaming at me. I asked her, that voice was mine, saying, is this an attempt to block Black voters and Democrats from voting? And I'm showing her a picture of one of her Black neighbors. Why am I doing that? Because this is one of her Black neighbors that this woman challenged. This is the new threat. The reason we call this film Vigilantes, Inc. is that according to Mark Elias, who is Kamala Harris's new vote protection lawyer, The number one threat to this election in 2024 are vigilante challenges. What is a vigilante challenge? This is not when you get purged off the voter rolls or blocked from voting by the government. These are individuals who've taken it on themselves to challenge other voters' right to vote. And here's the ugly thing. We have 43 states where these laws where you can challenge other voters, left over from the Jim Crow period. That's been sitting dormant on these books of states all over the country. And they took it, and where I was in Georgia, where they took a new method for a test drive. And the first voice you heard, now you get the feel for the film, first voice you heard was Major Gamaliel Turner, African-American career military officer. He's America's chief expert for the Pentagon on warfare of the future. He is based out of Fort Benning in Columbus, Georgia. He and 4,000 other soldiers, mostly black men, were assigned to other military bases once the war in Ukraine broke out. And they were sent overseas and they were sent to other bases. And the Republican Party chairman in southern Georgia, not a government official, a Republican Party chairman, blocked their right to get absentee ballots. This vigilante blocked the right of these black soldiers to get their ballots. And what you heard was so what happened, Major Turner calls up, he's in California on assignment, and he calls up his voting office and says, "Where's my ballot?" And they said, "Oh, Mr. Turner, you've been challenged." He says, "What the heck does that mean?" And they said, "Well, all you have to do, no problem, you'll get your ballot. All you have to do is come into our office, prove you're an American citizen, prove you live where you live, no problem." And that's when he says, "What? 2 or 3 days before the election, you're telling me that if I want to vote, I have to fly 2,600 miles to go to your office?" He says, "You talk to fools like that. I'm not a fool. I know what this is. This is Jim Crow. This is nothing different than counting the number of jelly beans in a jar for black people to vote." So this one guy challenged 4,000 black soldiers who lost their vote. And you will follow Major Gamaliel Turner as we have him confront the vigilante who challenged his vote. And I got to tell you this, he's a Republican Party chairman, okay, in southern Georgia. He actually dresses like a vigilante. He thinks he's Doc Holliday, and he has cowboy boots and cowboy hat. And he was wearing, when we were filming him, a holster, like a Doc Holliday vigilante OK Corral holster with a 6-gun in it, plural handle. And he made a big point that his gun was loaded. And we brought him so when he's being filmed, we invited him to be filmed in this house, with his little Doc Holliday thing, this vigilante. And I said, "Do you know whose house you're in?" "No." "Well, meet your host." And I bring out from the kitchen Major Turner, this African-American officer, who sits down next to him and says, "You challenged my vote. You didn't talk to me. You never called me. You never contacted me or any of my other fellow soldiers. And yet you challenged our vote." And I asked him, "Would you like to apologize to the Major?" And he refused.
Greg Palast here. We are talking about voter suppression. His book, How Trump Stole 2020. I'm going to ask him about that. And Vigilantes Inc. is out. We've sent out the link. I dropped it in Nubia. We should drop it on Twitter as well on how you can watch it for free. But before we went to break, Greg, I asked you the states that you're most concerned about voter suppression this time around.
Number one, we're back to Georgia because they just changed the law. I spoke to Gerald Griggs, president of the Georgia NAACP. They've changed the law. 88 vigilantes in 2020 attacked, are you ready for this, 180,000 voters. Like that one woman just sent an email in with 32,000 names of neighbors. But she was blocked by Cobb County because they saw my research and black voters. I was working with Black Voters Matter Fund, Latasha Brown, Cliff Albright, NAACP, ACLU, etc. And we were able to stop this in 2020, except for, unfortunately, those 4,000 black soldiers and a few thousand others. Otherwise, Biden, who only won the state by less than 12,000 votes, would have lost Georgia and the White House. But this time, I'm really worried because they've changed the law where the counties cannot reject these challenges. Everyone has to go in physically who's been challenged. And they're looking at 300,000 or 400,000 in Georgia. Then we go to Arizona. You'll see Arizona in the film where Carrie Lake is running for Senate. And I was at a rally. I was undercover with a red, white, and blue hat. And they were
I was going to say, you're pretty distinct with your hat,
yes,
sir.
so I was in disguise.
Switched it up?
I disguised, and I got to Carrie
Put on
Lake.
glasses?
And she was, and I won't tell you all my disguises. And she was, was honoring the QAnon shaman. He had just gotten out of prison. The other I'm worried very much about Wisconsin, where 130,000 voters have been challenged. And I did a map with the Washington Post where we showed that the black precincts of Milwaukee are identical to the precincts where the challenges were mounted, and also challenges against students in Madison. I'm worried about Michigan.
Coincidence.
Yeah. Oh, just a coincidence. Almost all the people
on
challenged.
that though. On that, before you continue, I'm in my Nubia chat, and Tyra wanted to know, how do you know that these provisional ballots were mostly black? How do you know that?
Because it's been very well studied by experts in law, Kaiser of Harvard, our Barbara Arnwine, Columbia law professors, and we've had
and they're secret. I mean, how do the ballots we aren't supposed to know, right? You open
it's easy to figure out. Because I hate to say it, we are a ghettoized nation, and precincts are only.
Oh, you mean we're segregated?
Yeah. So we are.
Watch that ghetto thing.
Yeah,
Greg.
we are an apartheid state, and as a practical matter in terms of living. So some precincts are 80% black and some precincts are 80% white. So statistically, we can figure out who they're targeting. It's real obvious when you see the film and you see those maps. You know it.
Before you go to the next one, just state why are they targeting black voters?
It's not the color of your skin; it's the color of your vote.
We only make up 14% of the population. We don't make up the largest portion of the electorate. It's white women that make up the largest portion of the electorate. Why are they targeting us and not white women?
Well, it's not the color of your skin; it's the color of your vote. And remember, Biden only won Georgia by 11,000 votes out of 5 million. He only won Arizona by about 12,000 votes out of a couple million. Nevada, a few thousand votes. Wisconsin, 10,000 votes. So the margins are so teeny tiny that if you can knock off 30, 40,000 black voters, it's over with. And they're not targeting 30 or 40,000. I want to give you a number that'll scare you. There were 88 voter vigilantes attacking all Republicans. I'm not being partisan, but they're all Republicans attacking hundreds of thousands of voters in 2020. But that was 88 vigilantes. This time, the group that was sending out these vigilantes threw the vote out of Texas. They've now signed up 40,000 vigilantes for 2024. 40,000, and they've already challenged, as of 5 weeks ago, last time I was able to check, they challenged 852,000 voters. 852,000 voters. It could be you, which is why I want everyone. Please go to Save Your Vote, not Save My Vote, Save His Vote, SaveYourVote.org, and there you can find out if you're still registered, if someone's challenged you. You can find out how to protect yourself. We have the numbers for the lawyers if you're in trouble, and we also give you a free streaming link for Vigilantes Inc., America's new vote suppression hitmen. So you get a free stream of the film, but you also get the information how to check your vote, protect your vote, and what to do if you're in trouble.
So if we all checked our vote, which I did, I checked my voter registration, I'm registered, I got my ballot in the mail, I'm good. Could they, because I did this a couple of weeks ago, right before election, can they, is it something we have to keep checking, Greg?
Unfortunately, you have to keep checking. A lot of states let you track an absentee ballot. I don't suggest people vote by mail. I have to because I'm traveling around election day.
No,
I
let me just say, I had to
yeah.
walk that back. I had a guest on, Pam Keith, who suggested we do that. But then with the joy and the mail system being what it is, and how corrupt everything, I was like, I can't do it. But I am going to vote early for the first time because
Yes.
I enjoy going on election day because it's it feels like community, standing in line with my neighbors and chatting until I get until I get in. I like the process. I like the people who work at the voter station. I love seeing them at my voter place. And but this year I think I'm gonna vote early
Please,
because I
please.
feel like that is going to protect my vote too, and not
Especially
leave it up
because
to
you have,
shenanigans.
yes, I'm very concerned because the government can't knock you off the voter rolls within 60 days of a federal election, but the vigilantes can do it on election day in most states, and they can even challenge your absentee ballot. So if you have a state where you can follow whether your absentee ballot has been challenged or processed, most states have a tracking system for your ballot. But if you go to saveyourvote.org, we'll have all that information and links so you can check your registration and keep checking it. Make sure when you go to the polls, you have all your ID and proof of address, even in states where they say you don't have to have it. Like in Wisconsin, where we're very worried, 130,000 people were challenged. If you show up at the polls in Wisconsin and they say you've been challenged, you've been knocked off, your name's not on the voter roll, you can re-register right there on the day of the election. Say, I want to re-register then right now. So we're going to give you all this advice on what to do. And just go to saveyourvote.org, because this is not just a movie, it's a movement. We're working with, I was just on the phone with Reverend Jesse Jackson, who wants everyone to watch this film. He sponsored the showing of our film at the Rainbow Push Coalition. He actually told President Biden to watch the film on Saturday when he's at the CBC.
Okay.
So you really, and Kamala Harris is completely behind this, and she hired the one lawyer in America, the one guy in the Democratic Party who's really serious about taking on the voter vigilantes. But you got to protect yourself. Don't expect the parties, any political party, to take care of you. You take care of your vote. So please,
So if you're in
saveyourvote.org.
Georgia, check your vote. If you're in Arizona, check your vote. If you're in Wisconsin, check your vote. If you're in Michigan, check your vote. Where else? You were going to give us another.
I would say Pennsylvania and Texas.
Pennsylvania.
You know, Texas is, I don't know if you know the wonderful, the
goodness.
first black commissioner of Houston, the first black commissioner elected. He was accused of forging 750,000 ballots by these MAGA nuts. And they actually stood outside his home with automatic weapons, the Confederate flags, the whole thing, scaring the hell out of his family. He had to ultimately take armed protection. He can't walk through the city without armed guards. It's insane. He's the Houston commissioner, Harris County. And then they saw these vigilantes saw a truck near his home with an air conditioning supply truck, a repair truck. They literally ran the guy off the road. They could have killed him. Then they put a gun, this vigilante put a gun to his head and said, open up the back of your truck. Give me those ballots. So he opened up, this guy scared to death with a gun to his head, opened up the back of the truck. What was there? Air conditioning ducts and pipes. Luckily for the guy, the Houston police showed up and they saw a man with a gun to a guy's head. Now, this was not a lone nut. This is one of 50 detectives hired by a right-wing billionaire. This guy wasn't just some wacky nut. Well, he's pretty nutty with the gun. He was paid $250,000 to do this. It's really dangerous out there. So there's a danger to your ballot and there's a danger to your body. So you better be very careful and be aware and not be intimidated. We have numbers for you to call if there's some armed nut that's standing next to a drop box. In Arizona, we have flying teams working with organizations that will show up if someone is standing. They were literally standing next to the drop boxes with guns and full military gear that stop people from trying to vote. They even use drones on people. Scary.
And this is America, and I don't think it's good.